Hello out there, you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening into another Gamers Thoughts discussion. And I'm sitting here questioning people now, now we're comparing Metroid to God of War for some reason. And I get the point of the comparison is to say that Metroid shouldn't cost $60 because of all the expense that went into God of War, and that also at launch cost $60. Now, I don't know how many people are new to this, but prior to 6th gen, the prices of video games were not regulated. They were far different. There was no, oh, this is the exact price point that this game is going to be at, and you're just going to... There was no industry direction on pricing at that point. You could find a game as cheap as $20 and then as expensive as $90. The cost of video games was drastic, and I think companies did charge based upon how much they spent making the games. That was, back then, gaming was way more expensive for the individual. So, if you want to make that comparison, cool. Metroid shouldn't cost the same price as God of War or most Sony exclusives. I will give you that. I will actually agree with that. And then there's somebody who's like, hold on, why is he agreeing? Andre's a Nintendo fan. Why is he agreeing? Something's wrong here. I'm actually a fan of all of them, first of all. Secondly, I actually made this discussion quite a while ago. And it was actually in reference to Dead Rising 4. Because I had a whole rant about Dead Rising 4, about how stupid it was that they have a $60 price point for that game, but you have to pay for the $80 price point to actually get the full game and get the ending to the game. To get the complete game, you had to buy the deluxe edition of the game, not the standard edition, which took part of the ending away from it. So, either way, if you wanted to actually see the full end of that game, you still had to pay that additional $20 and upgrade your game just to get the ending. That was why I had a full-blown rant on my channel, Dead Rising 4 rant. You can go look it up on my YouTube channel. I ripped Capcom a new one in that video because I was ticked off that game companies, if you know you need more money for your game, you know you should be charging a higher MSRP, go ahead and do so. I have honestly not been a fan of the multi-tier pricing system for games for a good long while. It's one thing if a game comes out, it's complete, and that price is charged for it, and that price stays consistent. And maybe somewhere along the line, some additional content comes out for the game, and then you make a special edition and charge a little bit more for that special edition that includes all that other stuff, so that the pricing is fair versus somebody who just buys the standard edition and then decides they want to purchase the other stuff afterwards. I have no problem with it when it comes down to that. But I hate when games launch with multiple versions. You've got it happening with Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. It happened with Dead Rising 4. It's happened with multiple different versions of Call of Duty. It's happened with multiple different Ubisoft games. I hate that tiering system. So yeah, everybody wants a standardized $60 or $70 price at this point. You want the industry price to be standardized. Cool, you get that. Metroid Dread, whether people want to admit it or not, is a AAA production game. It's Nintendo's AAA production. They do their budgeting better than everyone else. They don't spend as much on their workload as everyone else, but it's still a AAA game for Nintendo. And they have a right to charge what they want to charge for it. And they have the right to decide not to drop the price of their game, especially if it's selling well. Like, I'm just telling y'all this straight up. You want to know why Sony's games, their exclusives, are ending up on PC? It's easy to figure it out. Because they're not charging enough for their games. Meaning they don't make enough in the initial sales and they don't make enough when they discount the game. So eventually they have to move them over to PC to recoup the extra cost for those games. That's why it's happening. That's the only reason it's happening. But everybody wants to praise it like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm like, y'all don't realize that Sony's floundering, which is why they're doing it. And it doesn't take a whole lot to figure that out, because otherwise Nintendo would be on the same trend. If their games weren't making money, and then they were constantly cutting the price to those games, their stuff would be on PC right now, legitimately. I could tell you this right now. Their games would be on PC. I mean, first-party Nintendo stuff would be on PC. No questions. If they were in the same situation Sony is. Yeah, Sony's a bigger company and they make more money on a variety of things, but when it comes down to gaming, they are more than likely doing worse. Even with the higher quality console and having all the bells and whistles that everybody is asking for, they are hemorrhaging money. That's why they do what they do. Like, y'all can listen to all the different producers and CEOs and all this from different companies talk about, bruh, in the long run, it's about making money. And the one thing Nintendo is doing successfully is making money. Yes, they have to make stuff that people like, but it's also a business. And they're in the business of making money. And if they decided that they were going to do what Sony does, it's more than likely only because they are losing money, and they are constantly losing money. So here's the thing. You either want Sony, and by extension a lot more third parties, to charge a proper price for their game where they can actually make some money off of it, or you need them to start budgeting better for their games so that they don't have to be as expensive to produce, and then they can make money off of a $60 price tag pretty easily. So it's either you go back to unregulated price points, which honestly I think would be better. Unregulated price points means not as many people are blowing their money on a bunch of stuff that they don't actually want or need, and they'll stop complaining. Because people will think twice if a game is, $120 at launch. And that's just the game. The whole game, the complete whole game is $120 at launch. Because that's how much the production cost is worth for them. A lot more people will stop buying games rapidly. They'll take their time and they'll actually play through and enjoy the stuff that they have. I mean, that would also require that Game Pass not be a thing. and I know this is probably some people like, Andre, you can't do that to me. Sorry, those would be the breaks. You have to drop Game Pass. And then companies can't give games away for free anymore. They would just have to stop doing it. So yeah, we can go back to unregulated. Or we can have these companies actually take their time and budget better so that they're not, one, draining themselves of resources to the point where they could go bankrupt off of a single game failing. Two, the games are going to run better on the platforms currently anyway because, hey, guess what? They budgeted better. They took more time to work the resources together with the limitations rather than trying to blow their load on the console or PC that they're developing for. And hey, maybe we would actually see the return of some AA studios. You know, the ones that got taken out the market when the HD era started because they couldn't keep up with the price. That's why. Because they couldn't keep up with the price. The resources that were needed to make their games were too costly. And a lot of them went under. So, hey, can make it happen. And somebody's going to say, well, but indies are smaller. Their budgeting is much, much smaller. If an indie becomes a big hit, they thrive. If they don't, guess what? They could still thrive. They don't have to be the biggest game on the planet in order to make money and be sustainable. AAA studios have to do this constantly or risk having everything shut down. How many studios has EA shut down after one game flopped? Think about that. How many studios has EA shut down after one game has flopped? A lot. How many companies went under after one game flopped, even though they had a successful run prior to that? They had 3 or 4 games in a row that were great. It's happened more in this industry than anybody really wants to admit to themselves. And that's a problem. That's the issue with everything going up in cost. That's why I keep talking about the fact that, you know, we didn't need, like, literally Microsoft and Sony didn't need anything past the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X just yet. They didn't need it for another 5 or 6 years. Hell, they didn't even need those consoles when they put them out. But the power play was the easiest way to draw people's attention away from what Nintendo was doing, because Nintendo was doing something different and new. And that always catches people's attention, even if they don't want to admit it immediately. So again, when you want higher resolution textures, you want everything 4K, 60 plus frames per second, you want the game to be able to have HDR, DLSS, ray tracing, and any other freaking buzzword you can throw in under the sun, it all comes with a cost. And that's the price of the video games. They need to go up, to be honest. Like, and I understand why everybody got mad about the cost of PS5 and Xbox Series console games being $70 brand new. Guess what? They have to charge more. They probably should be charging more than that. They probably should. Or they could budget better and make the titles in a more condensed situation where they don't spend as much money. Those are the two options. Because they're literally stuck. They're literally stuck in a situation where they don't have much of a choice to deal with it at all. They are either going to keep trying to perpetuate this industry standard price and sit here and make their games state of the art, and then throw on a ton of DLC and microtransactions to you know, make up the cost, or port their first party titles to somewhere that they weren't going to be normally, or they can manage their budgets better, scale down their games a little. They'll still look great because the technology of the consoles will make them look great, but they'll actually make money at that lower price point. And there's things that they can do to negate how much it costs them to make these games. But guess what? Gamers don't want a non-standardized industry pricing system. They want one, which means some games are going to cost more money than others. Like, if we were being honest, and we had a non-standardized system for pricing for video games, Nintendo would probably make a killing, because they'd be able to charge a lot. They'd probably be able to charge lower for their games and still make money on top of what they're doing now, because they budget their stuff way better than everyone else. They condense their games so that they don't take up extreme amounts of room on their hardware. And their games can be massive or small. So again, I'm in agreement. Hey, Metroid Dread should not be the same price as other AAA game. It shouldn't, because they don't spend as much money on the production side. But you know what? You guys wanted this industry standard bull crap? Well, guess what? You got it. And there are some benefits to it, and then there are some detriments to it. And you got to accept both. But you can't argue the worth of a game to one person based on what you like and what you don't like, because everybody likes different crap. So again, y'all want to have this argument? Have it with the industry. Discuss it with the industry. Try to fix it with the industry, but none of you are going to attempt to do that, and I know you won't. So, that's it for me. Thank you guys very much for listening in. Keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me, and until the next time, enjoy your games and peace out. And everybody stop being little crybaby ass bitches.